Hello,
Hi Danny, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
Awesome. So tell me your name and where you're joining us from.
My name is Mishti and I'm calling from Mumbai.
Hi, Misty.
Hello.
Glad to have you on the podcast. So tell me, what would you like to bitch about today?
I would like to bitch about how it has sort of become a trend for the young people to move out of India and go to
Okay,
a go to a first world country.
right. So move out of India as in has somebody from the right wing asked them to leave the country or are they moving on their own accord?
I actually don't know. I think probably their friend asked them to come along with them.
So is this that thing that people do where once they finish their education and they then go abroad either for work or for higher studies? Is that what you're referring to?
So I'm not referring to when people go out for work. I am referring to when people go out to study with the hopes of getting a new job and, live there
And
forever.
eventually a visa
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right.
Right.
Okay, okay. So why is it that this is something that annoys you?
I personally feel that it has sort of become a rule of thumb where it's like you finish then you do your 12th, then you do your undergraduation, and then you do your
Right,
graduation. Then for masters, you go out of your country. And
right.
I sort of feel this pressure that you sort of have. Like, if you don't go outside, like, what are you doing? Or are you doing well for yourself? Or,
Right.
you know, um,
But this pressure kind of seems valid, right? Because if you're studying so much, then you may
hmm.
as well put in a little more effort and make a better life for yourself. Or, like, if you haven't finished school, then you have a chance at doing really well in politics. So that kind of seems to be the trend, isn't it? Like you don't finish school, don't have an education, get into politics, run the country, finish your education, go for higher education, leave the country. I think that. But tell me this, Mishti,
Hmm.
has this like sort of become a must do within the college going crowd right now? Like, for example,
Yeah.
when I was in college,
Hmm.
going abroad for a master's degree wasn't spoken about as much back then. It was still fairly new. So we would still end up like kind of like working maybe for a couple of years and then
Hmm.
eventually getting a master's degree, and again the same thing, try and go abroad. And they would have these agencies that would like host these sort of like seminars in
Hmm.
in India,
Hmm.
where different colleges and universities from around the world would come and make a presentation and telling you about their campus and what all the courses that they're offering and what kind of a life you would have there. So like at that time, this was this was about around 2005, where
Hmm.
foreign universities were trying to sell themselves
Hmm.
to Indian students, and now it seems like they've been sold.
Yeah.
And
So now
people
it's like,
now.
yeah, now it's like they're on steroids.
Okay,
So
so now
they,
everybody wants a foreign degree basically.
yeah, everybody wants a foreign degree. That's true. And I also
Right.
sort of feel that I don't know, it's my personal opinion, that it's sort of become a sister industry to tourism. It's like they're selling
Right.
you this lifestyle, and you'll obviously go and like visit some places, right? Because you're gone there, you want some
Yeah.
Instagram
Yeah.
stories, you're
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
of your house for the first time,
Yeah.
and you sort of help them in their
Yeah,
economy or
but
something.
that is true. That is true. You are definitely helping the economy of these countries because Indian students are contributing millions of dollars
Friends.
to universities in Australia, the US, the UK. It's a big money game for sure, and
Yeah,
I would also reckon that not everybody actually has that kind of money.
they
But now,
don't.
because the allure of traveling abroad or having that foreign degree and eventually having that foreign lifestyle is so strong, that most of these students end up taking low student loans, and so you're already leaving this country with a large amount of debt.
Debt. Right. So for some students, the debt is so much that if they land a job, they would have to work there for 10 years.
To pay off
So
the student loan.
yeah, to pay off the student loan.
And that is if they land the
If they
job.
land a job. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, because from what I've heard, once you finish the courses over there, the local citizens of that particular country also tell you to go back.
Yeah.
So it's always you're being told from your own country to fuck off, and then when you get to another country, they're telling you to fuck off as well.
Yeah.
It's just an endless cycle of people fucking off from one place to the other. But
Yeah.
it is quite difficult to land a job in many of these countries. Also, a lot of these courses don't necessarily have the same amount of weightage outside those countries, and even within those countries, it because of the way immigration laws are constantly evolving and stuff like that. It's not as easy to get a job. So not every student that leaves India for a foreign degree is getting a job, and
True,
then
true.
you eventually give up after trying as much as you can, come back to India with a degree that hopefully means something, and you
Yeah.
have all this debt.
So,
So
so that's one way of looking at it. But then now, if there's somebody who hasn't gone abroad and doesn't have the degree, right? Now, how would that person compete with somebody who has an abroad degree? Like, how, if you both of them are sitting together in an interview, how do you think, or like, who do you think would have more leverage? You know,
but where are
so
they sitting in the interview? Like, where is this interview happening, in India or abroad?
in India, now that they've come back,
Right. But from what
and
I've heard, a lot of these degrees don't really carry much weight in
that
India.
is
Is
a
this true?
different conversation. Let's talk about a degree that has value.
Okay,
Yeah,
assuming,
assuming that
yeah,
it's all good and it has value, but this person is not landing a
and
job.
both
So,
students and both students are fresh out of college, no relevant work experience.
yeah, yeah. So
Okay, so
one,
they haven't been selling tea
or
anywhere and stuff like that.
yeah,
It's they've just finished college and they've gone straight for an interview. I think I'm not sure what the HR policies around foreign universities are, but I reckon, I mean, from my experience in the corporate world, once you get to the interview, it's about how you sell yourself. Really,
oh,
even if
okay,
you have zero experience whatsoever, I think if you can sell yourself with the right amount of confidence, with the right amount of sort of like integrity and curiosity and a key willingness to kind of learn and grow within the organization, I think don't see why a student with an Indian degree can't compete with a student with a foreign degree.
all right.
Because honestly, like I'll tell you from my experience, right? I have an MBA in advertising, and do you know how many people I have shown that degree to?
I
Zero.
don't know. Oh,
Zero. Like no one has seen that degree. I've never had to show it in an interview anywhere. It's just
really?
like you have, yes, once you leave university, once you get into the real world, the longer you stay there and you work and you learn and you grow, you realize that the degree that you worked so hard for, the degree that you paid so much money for, is just a key that
Okay,
opens a door. That's about
okay.
it. It opens a door into some office that is willing to tolerate you for 15 minutes, where they look at a resume that you've spent 6 hours putting together, stressing over, and deciding which font you want to use and stuff like that. That's about it. It gets you a foot in the door. But once you have the job, everything is in your hands. Your destiny is in your hands. It's all about how well you do, how much effort you put in, what kind of success you achieve within that organization, and eventually you leave and join another organization, and that's
All right.
when experience sells way better than your degrees.
Okay. But what if this is like the first ever interview that you're giving?
Well,
So
it's
I
this it's
think,
the same thing, right? Like even if it's your first interview, like so for example, I don't have a foreign degree. A lot of my friends don't have foreign degrees,
mm-hmm.
and we are doing pretty okay. I think the traditional uh, way to monetize education that you have paid for as a student has kind of like changed. There are a lot of people figuring out their own way to do things.
Yeah.
So there isn't a single way to get to where you want to go in life today, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that
That's a
is an
good thing.
amazing thing.
But I sense that your angst is very valid because this is stuff that you learn after you finish the education, right?
Yeah.
Nobody tells you these things before, because when you are preparing for these entrance exams, when you are at the campus and doing all these assignments, and you're taking all this pressure for placements, holy shit, placement season is every student's nightmare. Like,
Nightmare.
it's just for those two
Yeah.
3 months, everyone's like a headless chicken, and the minute one person gets placed, everyone's like, oh, he got a CTC of 8 lakhs, and you're like, oh damn, 8 lakhs, that's it. And then somebody else will be like 20 lakhs and 30 lakhs, and it just means nothing, because most students will leave their first job within the first 6 to 8 months of joining, within the first year for sure. Like, so there is a lot of stuff that I have realized that I stressed about as a student, which actually wasn't necessary at all. And the minute you get to the other side, 2 to 3 years in, you're like, man, there was no need for me to be so worried about all of these things. And then when you throw a foreign education, or the need for a foreign education, or you create peer pressure around that need,
Right.
you are I feel like a lot of students are unnecessarily hurling themselves down a path of debt. That's the biggest issue.
Yeah.
So I tried as well, so I tried to get a foreign degree as well. After I
Okay.
worked for about 4 years after my graduation,
Uh-huh.
and I wanted to go to Australia, and I got into RMIT Australia for a master's
Oh.
degree in advertising, and I was ready to leave. And you're absolutely right. The fees were humongous.
I
I knew I
know.
was going to be in debt for a very long time, but I was also very keen to leave the country, see the world, maybe build a life for myself over there. And then at the same time, I also answered an entrance exam for an MBA degree here in India, and I got through here as well. And the fees were much less. And it was in Pune, so I was very close to my families. If I ever wanted to go visit mom and dad, I could always
Yeah.
just do that. So I kind of decided against going to Australia. So for two reasons. One being the really high fees, and I didn't want my debt to be that high. And secondly, okay, still close to family. And
Yeah.
here's how the universe also has a sense of humor, because the first time after I started doing comedy, I went to Australia to do a tour with the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. They
Oh.
had scheduled an interview with me
Oh.
at RMIT, the same
Oh.
college. Yeah, the
Damn.
same college. Yeah, the same
Damn.
college that I wanted to pay obscene amounts of money to attend. I was invited to for an
Yeah.
interview.
Did they pay you?
So, no, it's a promotional
Okay.
interview for
Oh, okay, okay, okay,
the
okay.
festival. But I did make money on the trip, of course. But it's just that sometimes I've realized that sometimes we want to get somewhere and we think that, okay, this is my path to get there, but there are so many other ways. Sometimes you just have to leave some things up to chance, and life can surprise you in that way. And thankfully, I did not have much debt after I was done with my MBA. I managed to pay my student loan off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I kind of really dodged a bullet there. But yeah, I see your point. So is this a thing where you get judged in college if you are not doing a foreign degree after
Well,
graduation?
it's sort of become a status symbol for a lot of people. And not exactly in college, but your relatives and just like your neighbors, and everybody would look at
Oh,
you different.
everybody wants in on this action, right?
Yeah.
And they treat you differently if you don't do a foreign degree.
They don't treat you differently if you don't do a foreign degree, but if you do, then yes, they do treat you differently.
Oh, you get treated better. You get better
Better,
customer
yeah.
service.
If
You
you've
get better
been,
customer service if you say, okay, I'm going to
yeah,
Australia
yeah,
or the
yeah.
UK
True that.
to study. Why do you think people still have these big puppy eyes when it comes to foreign locations?
I
What
personally
is it?
think that later, like, you know, before, people actually really worked super hard, and they were like super intelligent people who left India based on their own merit, right? So they went over there and they had
Right.
their jobs. So this, I'm talking about the first or the second generation of people, like very,
Yeah.
very smart people leaving India. And these people landed jobs which were very high paying jobs. Like
Right.
only very intellectual people would get those jobs at, basically like all the amazing top
Doctors
level,
and
yeah, all the
yeah, yeah,
C level jobs in any companies. So
yeah.
those people, I'd say, brought in money back home, and they could see that their parents living a better life or whatever. I don't really know. So that is still there, and people still believe that that is how it is. And these people also, like the people, the first generation of people, the second generation, when they left, they ended up having a very good lifestyle there. So like there they lived in richer neighborhoods, and they had better cars, and their kids went to,
Yeah,
good schools. So
yeah.
that is the lifestyle that most people want and the thing that they're looking for. So if somebody
So basically,
leaves,
yeah, yeah. So I think every family is looking at their child as a ticket to a better life. If not
yeah,
for the immediate family, at least for the child themselves,
yeah, true.
which I think is fair. Which I think is
It's
fair.
it's everybody's dream. Come on.
It
Can't
is
deny that.
it's fair. So
Yeah.
like I'll tell you my example as well. Like I started traveling internationally pretty late in life. I think my first trip out of the country was at the age of 26 or no 28. The first time I
Okay.
traveled out of the country was 28. And as soon as I got to all of these countries, I was like, man, this is amazing. Like everything works. Like why are the roads not dug up? And I'm getting network everywhere. And like this is really 5G speed, so I was quite fascinated. I was like, man, it is pretty cool. There are definitely a lot of plus points. And then when you come back home, you
Hmm.
realize that you're not going to live long enough to see your country maybe develop as well as the one you recently visited. So I can see why people are like, you know what, I don't know if this is ever going to happen. I don't know if I'm ever going to see this in my lifetime over here. So maybe it's better for me to leave. But at the same time, the grass isn't as green as it looks, is it? Because once you get
But
there, it's not an easy
yeah,
life.
it's not at all. Right now,
Yeah. So
it's
if
actually,
anyone, yeah. So like if anyone is looking at a foreign degree as an easy ticket to an international lifestyle, I can assure you it is not. It's a
it's
lot of
not.
work. It's a lot of rejection. Even after you get there and you've paid them a shit ton of money, it's not easy. Not everybody is able to assimilate into the culture. Not everybody is able to kind of like uh, land those jobs that will keep them there. So it's an intense amount of work. And do you feel that your peers are aware of this and they're prepared for it, or is it just like I just want the degree?
So I don't think most of the people who I know have gone there. They don't really know what they're signing up for. And I genuinely feel that they watched Friends, and then they watched a couple of
Okay.
their friends go, and
Uh-huh.
this entire they also must have felt the pressure, obviously, to leave, to
Oh,
find
so when you said
something.
friends, you meant their friends,
Yeah, yeah, they are
or the
friends.
TV? Or I thought the TV show Friends.
No,
Like
no,
they
no.
watched
Friends
Friends.
also,
And
also,
then, like,
also
I know
friends,
what you
and
mean.
they are
Yeah. No,
friends.
because before we started recording, I was just watching Friends, and I was literally watching a couple of episodes before we started this recording, and I was just thinking like, what episode of Friends did they watch where they were like, hey, I want to move to the US and work in a coffee shop. But yeah, I get what you mean. So they've seen
Yeah,
how it has all played out with their friends, and they're like, yeah, I want some of that action as well.
yeah.
And then, do you have friends who've moved there and regret it in any way,
I don't think
or have they
anybody would.
complained?
Yeah, I don't think so. Most of my friends wouldn't, what do you say, openly talk about it. And a lot of people don't openly talk about their struggles
The
because,
struggles, right?
yeah, yeah, because even if I feel, even if you're struggling in your life, you don't really openly talk about it as much as you would to your therapist, I think, you know.
Yeah.
So that is it. And
But
eventually everybody just wants to like know about the good parts, like, oh, what did you do there? Or how was it? So
right,
that is, I think, what people end up talking about
right.
mostly.
But like I have friends, like so I'm in my late 30s now. So all of my friends who left for countries like Australia, got the foreign degree, got their PR, managed to make a life for themselves. They're doing well.
Okay.
I've visited their homes, and they're doing well for
So,
themselves. But they have admitted as well that it isn't easy. It took a lot. It was like literally a decade of persistence that got them there.
yeah.
And also there are certain things that we also should be made aware of, or before we sign up for this, because culturally it's a very different lifestyle. For example, in Australia, everything kind of like shuts by 8 or 9 p.m on the weekdays.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's shut. There isn't socializing on the same scale like we do in India. Everybody
Hmm.
lives by themselves, and you have to take an appointment to meet a friend, and you have to
Hmm.
walk like a considerable distance to see another human being if you're living in the suburbs. So it takes a lot to get used to that, and it
Hmm.
also invokes a lot of loneliness in you. So I've seen this happen as well. So the grass definitely isn't greener on the other side. There are a lot of perks to living in India as well. Like I often get asked, like, "Are you planning to move abroad? Are you planning to settle abroad?" And I'm like, "No, I like it here. Like I have a really really good life here in India that I know I wouldn't have in most other countries around the world." And you know what I'm talking about, right? There's certain
Yeah, but
luxuries that you
I
have
feel
here.
that 10 years ago, let's say 10 years ago, you were sort of, if you'd gone there and you got a degree, you were sort of guaranteed a job. Right now,
Yeah.
it's not the case. So a lot of my friends do not have a job at all. Like they're just living there, um,
Right.
and they're like living
And
off of
shooting
their,
Instagram reels.
yeah, and they're living off of their parents' money over there.
Right.
So I don't get it. Like, so it's the student that's there, but then they're also spending more money from their
Right.
parents, trying to live there. And so if somebody is sort of, using their parents' money and living, they're obviously not very happy about it. Because I mean, anybody who's living there would sort of feel a little bit of guilt. I don't know, person to person, but they would, right? Because I mean, I was supposed to go
I
get
mean,
a
yeah.
job and
Yeah, I mean, there is
support
that
my
sense of
parents.
shame. Yeah, there is that sense of shame that comes with being like, oh man, yeah, I should have had a job by now, and I'm still depending on my parents. And there's this sort of like, I don't want to go back home to India and face
Yeah.
everybody there and like feel like a loser. Like I am amazed at how we consistently keep finding reasons to put pressure on ourselves every single day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you don't if you go to another country, get a degree, and it doesn't work out, just come back. It's okay. Like life
Oh no,
uh,
it's not
never works
okay.
out. Eventually, life has
Yeah.
never worked out for anybody. All of us will die. Everybody who came before us have died. No one's stuck around long enough to be like, yeah, look at everything I have achieved. Nah, it's just
Yeah.
it's a zero sum game.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
what
mean,
is your stance on this? Do you want to leave India and move somewhere else or get a job somewhere else, or do
so
you want to live here?
so the thing is that I would like to leave India, um, if I'm forced to. Like, if I'm genuinely tired of the rights here, if I'm genuinely tired of the
Right.
standard of living here, and if
Or if
see,
somebody
I
shows
would,
up with a bulldozer outside your house, you're just like,
yeah, like if I am like, I would, what do you say, hold on to it as much as I can. Like I would try to hold on to it as much as I can. But if I'm really, really pissed Or if I get a better opportunity there, and I know that if I leave, I am going to get a better life. Like this is, I don't care if I leave. I want to live a better life. Then yes, I would. But that is the only clause. So a lot of people leave India and they are doing well for themselves. And you know what? They should be celebrated. And they're really, if
Yeah.
if they are doing really well for themselves. But if you really don't know what's next, and what would happen to you after you get your degree? So if you don't know these
Yeah.
answers, it's very difficult for me to sort of leave and go. I think that is where I come
But what are
from.
your friends doing? So your friends are keen on leaving.
Yeah, completely, yes. They're just like,
Th-
okay, bye, I'm done with this degree. So I asked them, would you like to work here? And they're like, no, actually, I would like to go abroad and study more.
hmm I remember reading this article like a couple of weeks ago about this. I think he's an IT engineer from Bangalore who I think got a job. He works at Google. Yeah, he works at Google here. And when asked why he didn't, kind of like just work for Google in the US, he said he had the opportunity, but he turned it down because he thinks that um, living in India is more beneficial than living abroad. And one of the reasons that he cited was being close to your family, being
Yeah,
close to your parents.
yeah.
And how do you feel about that? Do you think that is something that you young people should factor
So
into their decision making?
So basically, there are two things, right? And there are two ways how you could go about it. Firstly, is you love your parents, and secondly, is you despise them. So if you really love your,
Or you love one and despise the other?
then you have to live with your parents, right? Because you can't really choose,
Yeah.
and you
Or you
shouldn't.
despise them both, or they despise you and you love them. Like, my God, I love the infinite combinations of
Yeah,
parent child love. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so go on, you were saying, yeah.
Yeah, so if you love them, right, and it's okay to live with them or even, away from them, you should sort of stay back with them, I personally feel. And this is based on personal, what do you say, perspective. This is my
Experience.
perspective. Yeah. So I feel that there is going to come a point in your life where your parents wouldn't be able to take care of themselves, and
Yeah.
rather than just leaving it up to the cousin that lives in India for you, you should sort of be there for your parents. And I
Yeah.
have seen
I agree.
parents, I have seen parents become depressed. So for the first year, it's all good. It's all amazing for them as well. They keep saying, "Oh, my kid is in the US. Oh, my kid is studying
Yeah.
in the UK and all." But eventually, I think, see, we come from a generation of if our kid decides to leave us, we'll be fine with it. But they sort of come from a place where they lived with their parents until, their parents passed away.
They got
So,
married.
yeah,
Yeah.
or their parents passed away for men. So
And many of them didn't move too far away either. So they were
either,
always within a year short of their parents. Yeah.
yeah. So when that happens, is you see them get older younger. Sorry, no, get older faster, and then you see
Yeah.
them depressed, and you constantly feel that they're not in the moment, even at like at family gatherings or
Yeah. This
anything
is
like
true.
that.
This is a very sharp observation you have made. This is something I've noticed as well. Is that with our parents' generation, nobody has really prepared them for what comes
Hmm.
after your kids grow up and leave the home, number
Hmm.
one. And nobody prepares them for what also comes when you lose your partner, you know.
Yeah.
So there is an entire generation of senior citizens, if I may, who are lonely and depressed,
Yeah.
and they have no clue how to talk about, how to deal with it, who to talk to about it, because they've just not been prepared for it. Their
Yeah.
entire, and you are so right, their entire lives when they were children were like, okay, you got to go to school, you got to get a job, you got to get married, go have kids, and then we are done. That's what their parents said to
Yeah.
them. And they said, okay, cool, that's what we do. And then they did their job, they tried their best, they put their kids to school, that's us. And we grew up and we left, and then nobody told them about something called the empty nest syndrome, which is an actual thing where suddenly the house is empty. There's not enough noise. There's just that whole vibe of having young people, your kids around, is just gone. It's just silent. It's just you and your partner. And God forbid if you are with somebody you can't get along with,
Yeah.
then you got to put up with each other till one of you kicks the bucket, and then it's even more loneliness. And while your kids are out there conquering the world, it's just an utter lack of awareness about this that I find quite sad. Like, and it's something that I've had to discover, through losing my own father, and I'm seeing
I'm
how
so
that has
sorry.
affected my mom, and that's okay, and how that has affected my mom and all of us, because as much as we would like to be with our family all the time, we can't do that as well, right? We have to go
Yeah.
out there, we have to make the money so that we can take care of the family. It's like a vicious circle. But one of the things that I'm really grateful for is that I get to do comedy for a living, which gives me
Yeah.
unlimited flexibility and freedom in a way.
Yeah.
And it places me in a situation where I can see my mom as often as I can. And while my dad was around too, I would go to Goa as often as I possibly could. So in the last 12 years that I've been doing comedy, I've been visiting home literally every other month. And even then sometimes I could sense from my parents' reactions that whenever I would leave, it wasn't enough. They would say, stay another day, stay a couple of days more. And I would tell them, do you know how less other people get to see their kids, because they get leave maybe once a year, they're living abroad. And kind of like it hits harder as you get older. So what you said is so true, that when, as a student, when you are considering your options in life, you must factor in your parents' well-being as well, in the sense that you got to understand that our parents' generation were not very social. They don't have friends the same way we do. Like for us, even if we end up unmarried and childless in our 60s, we'll still have other unmarried and
Unmarried and
childless
childless
friends
people. Yeah.
that we can all hang out with. There's a bunch of us with arthritis at music festivals, but
Yeah.
our parents don't have that. So it's not easy. It's bloody difficult. But I feel like, yeah, if you have the time, and if you can make that time to go visit your parents, or if you're lucky enough to live somewhere or work somewhere close to where your parents live, yeah, you should totally do it. But yes, definitely be aware, for all of you watching and listening, that when you leave your home as an adult, your parents may not necessarily say this to you, but Mishti is right. They get lonely, they get depressed. So like, make sure you keep in touch. Make sure you give them a call every now and then. And if life takes you to faraway locations, that's great. That's good on you for all your success. But don't forget, that somebody back home, kind of misses you a lot, and they will not say it. That's the thing about parents. They will not tell you, like, yeah, they'll just they'll deal with it silently, and then suddenly you find yourself thinking, holy shit, that was the last Christmas I had with my father and I didn't even know. And a lot of us, as we get older, will have these moments where, like, oh my God, that was the last Diwali I had. So I think if you are able to spread your wings and fly as high and far away as you can, but every now and then keep in mind that every occasion that you celebrated with your parents, or every special moment that you've had with them over the years, those are not coming back. And if you have a chance to relive or celebrate those moments, like I always tell my friends, if it's a festival, you gotta go home. Home. If it's Christmas or Diwali or anything that, or Eid or anything that you celebrated as a child with the family, go home.
Yeah.
Go home. That's because nothing will make your parents happier than at least having you in your house, at their home, for a festival or any other occasion as well. But I'm really glad you brought out that point, Mishri. That I think that for me, because of everything I've had to deal with in the grieving process over the last year and a
Yeah.
half, is this takeaway that anything that you achieve in life means nothing if you don't have somebody special to share it with.
Share
And
it with.
your parents will always be top of that list. So whenever you can, make the time for them. Whether you have a foreign degree or an Indian degree or no degree at all.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that was a really fun discussion, Mishti. And thank you so much for getting on the podcast. And I hope success finds its way to you either
Thank you so
domestically or
much.
internationally. And it will start with economy class, then move to business class, and then may it peak at first class travel. And no matter where you go, may you always come back to your roots.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was really
It
nice
was my
talking to
pleasure.
you.
My
Yeah.
pleasure. I have a wonderful rest of the week, and I hope to see you at a live show
I will.
someday.
I will. I will come.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. This
But
was a lot of fun. Sorry, go on.
I was saying I've seen you live once.
Was it good?
Yeah.
Of course it was. But no reason why you can't come again and
Yeah,
bring
yeah, I'm
some
gonna
friends
come.
and maybe your parents. Yeah, this has been happening a
Yeah.
lot at my shows. People have been bringing their parents to my shows, and man, I have to say this: the parents end up having more fun than the kids.
Oh,
It is hilarious, yeah. And I've had these parents come up to me after the show and they'll be like, man, I had no clue who you were. My daughter brought me to the show, or my son brought me to the show, and I had such a great time. And I'm just recalling all the horrible shit I've said on stage, and I'm like, damn, that's so cool. That's so cool. But yeah, this was a lot of fun, Mishti,
yeah.
and I look forward to bumping into you someday.
All right. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you so
Bye.
much for joining me on the podcast. You have a wonderful evening. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.